Jay here, Stretford Paddock. This is the Paper Talk. As you can see, I'm in the studio. You know what to do by now. We're live. It means you guys need to get involved in the chat and the comments. Let us know what you think about all the latest Manchester United news. We're going to have an update about the takeover. Been a little bit quiet on the takeover front, and apparently a few of the bidders are getting annoyed with the lack of movement on that, but we should have something happening this week. We'll also be talking about transfer news, and it seems that Erik ten Hag is going to wield the axe like Lisandro Martinez with a meat cleaver. He's going to absolutely go through this squad, and anyone who's not up to scratch is going to be gone in the summer, according to reports, as he looks to bring in some funds to buy the players that he needs to push Manchester United forward. We'll also have a little bit of an update on Charlie McNeill as well, a young player we've always been a fan of on this channel. Did really well for the academy team, obviously helps us win the FA Youth Cup. He's been on loan, so we'll get into all that as well. So make sure you are joining in and getting involved in the comments as well. We'll also have a little bit of a transfer story on a potential incoming player, a right back that we've been linked with for a little while now, and it looks like he's keen to come to Manchester United as well. Right, I can see a few of you already in here. O'Hanlon86 says, as long as we keep Phil Jones, I'm happy. Tom Hartley says, can't imagine we're going to get a whole lot of money from that bunch, sadly. It's a bit of a varied bunch. I'll get into it in a minute, because there's some players that you think, okay, maybe you can get a few quid for. There's some that you think, basically, we're just getting them off the wage bill there, like has been mentioned. Matthew Coward says, any news on Steve's motor? And I haven't got any news on that. I know there was his car got nicked yesterday, so you know, he's obviously sorting that out. It's never a nice feeling. Danny Inns, Tobias Nilsson, Satyan Asri, Brian Casey, Chikoya Trot, all saying good morning. Santa Notch says, morning, Lech, thank you. Aswin, Seth Mad Havan says, hey Jay, love you bald head. Thank you. Yeah, should we get into it then? Because we've got a few stories. We'll start off with a bit of the old takeover news, because it seems that this has all gone a little bit quiet, and as I said earlier, some of the bidders are getting slightly frustrated with the fact that there hasn't been movement, but we can expect something this week. You can see it here, it's in the Daily Mail. It's been reported elsewhere as well, but I think the Mail have sort of led the way on this one. And it says here, movement expected in Manchester United takeover battle this week after bidders were left frustrated over a lack of update more than 2 weeks on from second bids, amid fears they might not be in charge in time for the summer window. Now, originally, when Manchester United's sale was being suggested, mooted, whatever, all the reports were that the Glazers wanted to sell, or the new owners wanted to come in by the time there was enough time, to deal with the summer transfer window, to fund summer transfers. Now, according to the initial reports, the Glazers were open to that, and the club was going to be sold with plenty of time to sort of, for the new owners to come in and say, right, here's the players we want to buy, here's the money that's available and all that sort of stuff. Now, though, it's dragging on, and there is a little bit of a worry, according to these reports, that the new owners might come in and there might not be enough time to get the transfers in you want to get. There's also been reports that the Glazers are a little bit reluctant to sell as well. I think it's Joel and Avram don't want to sell, the siblings do. Joel and Avram don't have the money to buy out the siblings, so it looks like they're going to have to sell. That has affected the markets as well, though. I read somewhere that there was a little bit of concern that the Glazers would sell, which has affected the market price. As you can see here on the article there, it says both parties, this is Sheikh Jassim and Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who are the main bidders, have been given extended deadlines to place their bids. Had been given, extended deadlines to place their bids after struggling in what was a short time frame, instigated by Rain Group, the US merchant bankers in charge of the process. Goes on to say, at that stage, with time thought to be of the essence, those involved expected to hear back in around 7 days, but that did not happen, and Sportsmail understands that the situation has caused frustration and even annoyance in some quarters. Sheikh Jassim has already announced his intention, should his offer be successful, to invest heavily. Significant funds are likely to be made available to manager Erik ten Hag as he seeks to reshape his squad. So if he wants to do that, he needs to know sooner rather than later. Also, I think there's been promises by Sir Jim Ratcliffe as well in terms of investment and in terms of doing up the stadium, which is obviously need of redevelopment, if not completely rebuilding, which is just so frustrating what has happened to Manchester United under the Glazers. The stadium's fallen apart, the training ground needs redeveloping, and we know what's happened on the pitch as well. Despite a bit of a renaissance under Erik ten Hag, we have fallen way behind our rivals over the past 10 years in particular since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. So you have to look at the Glazers, look at their mismanagement, look at the amount of money they've took out of the club, and just, I can't wait to see the back of him, to be honest with you. And it is annoying, I say this every day, it annoys me that they're going to walk away with billions of pounds worth of profit when they've not invested anything, and we're still 930 million or something in debt? Something like 900 odd million. It's just an astronomical figure that you look at how much debt this club is in. When they took over in 2005, you know what our debt was? Nothing. We were in any debt. So we've paid almost £1 billion to have the privilege of the Glazers owning us. It's an absolute disgrace. And it's funny how now the powers that be have instigated this sort of anti-Glazer rule. When new owners come in, they can't buy the club by using leverage buyouts and putting loans and debt onto a club, using the club as the asset to facilitate those loans. Not allowed anymore because of what the Glazers have done. Yeah, it was allowed in 2005 when the Glazers took over. Also, on this bidding story, there was some rumours, reports doing the rounds that Premier League clubs were getting together to try and prevent state-owned purchases of clubs. It seems to be in the light of Qatar potentially being a state-owned bid. I know people will say, or some people will say, well, Sheikh Jassim is a private investor. He's not part of the Saudi ruling regime, or whatever you want to call it, family, government, whatever. However, he does have strong ties to that government. I think his dad was the Prime Minister. He was in charge of the Qatari bank as well. So it does seem a bit unlikely that it's not being funded by the Qatari ruling family, especially when you look at some of the money that's available and what his net worth is. He's rich, but I don't think his net worth is anywhere near the sort of the billions and billions that are being proposed to buy the club, clear the debt, invest in a stadium, invest in a training ground, and invest in the squad as well. So anyway, clubs have got together and apparently, trying to put throw a spanner in the works in this one, but it doesn't look like that's going to be successful because technically this is a bid from a private investor, so there's nothing to do with state-owned. And also, that ship has already sailed. Look at the Saudi takeover of Newcastle United. Look at the Abu Dhabi group of Manchester City. So we have got state-owned clubs. Let's not kid ourselves here. I know that there was some sort of reports and stories being put out there that the Newcastle takeover wasn't technically the Saudis' public investment fund or whatever it's called, but it was. And we know what's happened with the situation of Manchester City as well. That was a state-owned bid. So if you're going to have these, then you can have them. But you can't just say, well, we're having for some clubs and not for Manchester United. That doesn't seem right. But it doesn't seem like it's going to affect any change anyway. It all just seems like a bit of a moot point and just a few clubs unhappy. Probably because they think Manchester United, with Eric Ten Hag and a load of money, it's a bit of a daunting prospect, so let's try and change the rules. Whether you agree with state ownership or not is one thing. I personally don't. But it seems ridiculous to say some clubs can be state-owned and others can't. That doesn't make any sense to me. Personally, I'd rather no club was state-owned, and I don't care what state it is. I just don't think it's a good idea, but I don't think you can have one rule for one club and one rule for another. That doesn't make sense, and it just seems like because it's Manchester United, they're trying to move the goalposts, but it's not going to work. Let's have a look at some of the comments here. Bob Bates says, Jay, another polished performance, no pun intended. Glazers out, yep, always. Brian Casey says, just shows how greedy these lot are. Not happy with $4 billion after they've ran the club into the ground. Such a good point. It's true, they have. And how can you not be happy with making, between them, what is there? There's 5 or 6, I don't even know how many siblings are. Too many of them who take money out of the club, I have to tell you that. But they're all going to walk away with probably hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds after doing nothing. Let's not forget as well, they didn't even, you might have a grudging respect for them if they'd managed to make this work themselves, and you think, okay, I don't like what they've done to the club, but they've managed to find a loophole and make this takeover happen, and they're savvy businessmen in that sense of the word, but they're not. They're just spoilt little brats. Malcolm Glazer bought the club with all this takeover and his leverage buyout, and when he died, he gave it to them. So they've not earned anything. They've not worked to get it. They've just been given it by daddy. And they don't know what they're doing. They're absolutely clueless. And now they're going to walk away from it with hundreds of millions of pounds. It's absolutely infuriating. It's even more infuriating that they seem to be digging their heels in, not happy with $5 billion, trying to push to $6 billion for something that we gather, an asset that actually, if you look and you go through the books and you look at what he's doing, redeveloping the stadium, the debt that we're in, it's not worth £6 billion. It isn't. I think the most that anyone's ever paid for a sports franchise is about $3.75 billion for, is it the Denver Broncos? I know Chelsea's was slightly different because Abramovich, I think, had consumed some of the debt and stuff on that. But it's absolutely farcical the way the Glazers are going about this. Jake Harvey says, I'd like to thank the Glazers for bringing Ralph Ragnick into my life before subsequently removing him all the same. Jeff Holden says, Jay, move on. My blood temperature is going up. Sorry. Charlie H says, okay, bud, missing my chats in the morning, mate. Good to see you. Oh, yep. Hope you're well. Yeah, I'm sorry for infuriating you with this news that the Glazers are dragging the reels. It is a little bit frustrating. I still think, personally, this is going to happen. I think they will sell. I think it'll be either Sir Jim Ratcliffe or Sheikh Jassim's bid that's successful. It's more likely probably it's Sheikh Jassim's because he seems to have deeper pockets, because, as I said earlier, he seems to have access to that Qatari wealth fund or whatever it's called. But we never know. There was the bid as well, wanted to buy Thomas Ziliakis, the Finnish entrepreneur, who I think he wants to buy half the club and then have the fans buy the other half, or maybe go into partnership with Sheikh Jassim and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. That, to me, looks like a non-starter. I don't see that as a serious bid. I think that it's more likely to be the two I've already mentioned. Shall we talk about something more cheery? Shall we talk about Charlie McNeill? Charlie McNeill, who, this is an article here in the Manchester Evening News by Tyrone Marshall. He's a good lad, Tyrone Marshall, unlike other journalists. It says he's talking about what Charlie McNeill has done on his loan spell. So it says it doesn't take League Two defenders long to find out about Charlie McNeill when they prepared to come up against the Manchester United loanee for the first time. So he's gone to Newport County since January. It's a bit of a rough and tumble league, that League Two, and he's had a bit of argy-bargy there. I read further down the article, it said he got an elbow in the back, I think, or back of the head in one of his first games. So he's not getting an easy ride down there. I think he's bagged a couple of goals, though, and he's shown what it's about. It's a good sort of training exercise, if I can call it that. It's a good club for him to go to for his development, because we know that he can score goals. We know his potential is there. Now, if you go to somewhere like that, League Two, where it is tough, and you can come out of there and you can, sort of hopefully physically develop as well, get used to playing first team football, get used to playing against the type of defenders that you're going to have to face in the senior game, and just sort of build yourself up a little bit, then it can only be a positive for Charlie McNeill and hopefully for Manchester United. Now, it's not been easy, it's not been plain sailing there. You can see it's unfortunate that it talks about how his 600 goal youth career. I won't use the word there, but it's not unusual because he scored 600 goals as a youngster. It's not necessarily unusual for a forward to plunder hatfuls of goals as a child, but that means very little now, the article says. But it's good. It's good to see him. It's good to see what's happening there for him, because I like Charlie McNeill. I think he's a very good player. And I think that if he develops the way we hope he can do, then he could have a bright future at Manchester United. It's not going to be easy, and this is the first of what I expect to be a couple of tests for him. I don't think he's going to come back from this loan move and go straight into the Manchester United first team. I think he may end up having another loan move, and it may take him a couple of years to get into the United first team. And not everyone is a fully polished striker at the age of 20, 21. You look at a lot of strikers, even the likes of Alan Shearer and Harry Kane and Jamie Vardy's the obvious one. Some of them don't really get going until they're in the sort of mid-20s. So he's got a little while to go yet. I don't think we should be too sort of anxious about his development, but it looks like he is doing well there, and hopefully he can build on that, because he's got a bright future ahead of him if he lives up to his potential. So good luck to Charlie McNeill, and it's good to see him doing well on his loan move. Shall we continue on transfers? This is the big one, isn't it? 13 players. This is in the Mail as well. It says Manchester United plan to sell up to 13 players this summer to make way for new stars in defence, midfield and, in capital letters, attack, as Red Devils continue to back Erik ten Hag ahead of another summer overhaul. We had a big overhaul in the summer, didn't we? Because we saw the likes of Edinson Cavani, Jesse Lingard, Paul Pogba, Nemanja Matic all leave the club. They were leaving, though, because their contracts were coming to an end. It says here in this article there could be 13 players who leave, and it also talks about United struggling in the past to move players on because of the contracts we've handed out. We hand out some ridiculous contracts, and we often go early with players as well. I remember Nemanja Matic, who'd been a little bit inconsistent during this spell at United, and then found some consistency. He had about 3 or 4 good games and was given, I think he was given a 3-year deal at the age of 31 or whatever it was. It was just stupid. And then he's gone within 18 months. It made no sense. We did the similar thing, I think, with Ashley Young and Chris Smalling. Obviously, Phil Jones as well, who's still on the books. Doesn't play at all, yet he's still on the Manchester United books because he was given a long big contract, and no one's going to match that. So, yeah, talking about players that could go here, you've got Harry Maguire, you've got Anthony Elanga, Anthony Martial as well. So some big names there. But if Manchester United are going to get serious and are going to bring in some money, you can't just sell the likes of, no disrespect to them, but Brandon Williams and Phil Jones and players like that, they're not going to bring in much money. Whereas someone like Anthony Martial and even Harry Maguire, you should get a few quid for them. And if you want to bring in some money to fund transfers, then that's what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to be a little bit more ruthless, because I think in the past, we've sort of done it in half measures. It's just players going on the end of their contract, so we're not getting anything for them, or we undersell players. I mean, I think Dan James at 20 odd million quid, he's like 7th highest or 5th highest transfer fee we've ever received. For a club like Manchester United, that is insane. When you look at some of our rivals, when you look at Liverpool, for example, they regularly get 20, 30 million for players. Players that don't get near their first team. You know, you look at, historically, they've had players like Jordan Ibe and Dominic Solanke. More recently, Ryan Brewster, players like that. They move them on and they get a decent wedge for them for players that have barely touched the first team. Manchester United, it just doesn't happen. So I think we do need to sort of be a little bit more ruthless, and I think we do need to maybe play a little bit more hardball in terms of getting a transfer fee in for some of these players. Some of these players, like, you look at him, you go, okay, Harry Maguire, he's an England international. He's 30, but he's not past it. And it wasn't that long ago. He was finishing 3rd and then 2nd in the league and costing 80 million quid as well. So I think you can get a fee for him. Andy Martial, I like Martial. He's been absolutely injured consistently this season. Can we rely on him? I don't know. If you are going to move him on, though, you should be able to get some money for him, because he's a player that not that long ago, it was a couple of seasons ago, was banging in 20-odd goals in a season. And we can see what he can do when he's fit. He did it at the weekend. He can score goals, and I think there'll be a lot of Premier League clubs that look at him and go, look, if we can keep him fit, he can come here and do a job for us. So I think, again, likes of Maguire, the likes of Anthony Martial, you get a bit of decent money for. Maybe Elanga and Eric Bailly and players like that. Brandon Williams fetch you, anything between sort of 5 and 15 million. All adds up. You put that together, and that can help fund players coming in, because we know we need a striker, and it looks like we're going to be in the market for right back as well. Patrick Scholten says Martial is top. Robin Simba says, I feel the Glazers are waiting to see the team's form end of the season so they can decide. Greedy chaps. Yep, that's one nice way of putting it. I'd have used a different word, but yep. KR4ZYMOFO says, selling deadweight is always a win-win though. Fergie says, Charlie Savage, Iqbal, forget about them too. Don't know what's going to happen with them. Faraz Khan says, Jay, on his question, who do you think we can get if we get new owners, regardless of who the new owners are? I think we can get either Harry Kane or Victor Osimhen. I think those are the two main transfer targets in terms of strikers, and I think we can get one of them. And I think we could be in the market and we can get a right back. I'm going to move on to that shortly, because I think that's been spoken about quite a lot recently. Santa Notch says 13 players being moved on and then bringing in 13 is well giddy. I don't know if that's going to happen. Jermaine Reuters says, hey Jay, morning from Cape Town. Morning to you, brother. I absolutely love South Africa. Great to see people from South Africa tuning in. Hit that like button, people. We've not even got 200 likes, which is an absolute disgrace. Arv says, first time I've caught this live, Jay. Just magical, mate. Thank you. Although, where have you been? What have you been doing? Hey? Good to see Glenn F. Well, sorry, not Glenn F anymore. Glenn finds YouTube is a con. Says, up the J. Should we talk about one of our potential incomings then? Jeremy Frimpong. We've got a tweet here from Fabrizio Romano, the man himself. It says, Jeremy Frimpong, keen on Manchester United possible move. Not advanced yet, as his agent met with United, Bayern and Barcelona. Interest in Frimpong doesn't change the situation of Diogo Dalot at this stage, as new long-term contract talks are still ongoing. That begs the question, doesn't it? What happens with Aaron Wan-Bissaka? Because you'd imagine if we bring in Frimpong and Dalot signs a long-term deal, can't see us having 3 right backs at the club. Get involved in the comments in the chat. Let us know what you think. And make sure you hit that like button as well. We're almost at 200 likes. Come on, people. Rafi Drew says, yo, Jay. Yep. Nice one, brother. Fergie says, I'm open to seeing Garnacho, Mainu and Fernandes, but forget about your Itbells, your Savages, McNeill. I've seen them. They're not, I think that should say, good enough. Mainu, He's saying he's up for that. Yeah, I still think that the likes of Zidane Iqbal have got a future. He's just changed agent, actually, Zidane Iqbal. I think he's got the same agent now as Erik ten Hag. That might help him. Who knows? Bit weird with Zidane. He did really well pre-season. He didn't get a loan move, even though, from what I gather, he wanted one. Stayed around at Manchester United. Hasn't really featured. He's been in a few squads. Has been an unused substitute, though. Hasn't played at all this season, and has now seen Kobbie Mainoo leapfrog him in the pecking order. Mainoo, I think he's a couple of years younger than him as well. So it's a bit surprising that what is happening with Zidane Iqbal. I like the kid. I think he's a very talented footballer, but we do need to see something happening with him sooner rather than later. Maybe he's going to have to wait till pre-season again and prove himself. Maybe Erik ten Hag is just looking at him going, look, train with the first team, keep around the first team. You're not quite there yet, but you will be sooner or later. Rafi Drew says, Zidane, Savage and McNeill just need a loan. They'll turn out all right. Exactly. Charlie Savage and Charlie McNeill both got loan moves. Zidane Iqbal hasn't. Hit that like button. We're almost there. Ed says, I like Frimpong, but don't know if he can do it in a back four. Gives me wing-back vibes similar to Dumfries. Denzel Dumfries is another player, of course, that Manchester United have been linked with. Quite a lot of love for Wan-Bissaka as well, saying Shane Tomlinson says, I love Spider-Wan. Peter Griffith says, Wan's the man. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what happens. Connor Allen says, McNeill scored at the weekend. Brilliant finish. Brian Casey says, for me, Maguire, Elanga and Donny, of course. Donny, almost forget about him. He's the forgotten man, isn't he? Should be the first ones to go. Donny van der Beek. This was meant to be his big opportunity. Erik ten Hag comes in, the manager that used to manage him at Ajax, of course. And what happens? Donny gets a couple of cameos, then gets a start. I think it was against Bournemouth, if memory serves, and gets injured. Just really disappointing. Jason McMillan says, Jay, what about the final midfielder we're linked with? I'll have a look into it. I don't know a lot about him, but we'll find out what's going on that front. Brian Gray says, I'd rather keep Wan-Bissaka over Delo if one is going. Joe Howard says, I want to see other people's opinions. Can you do a poll, Jay? Wan-Bissaka or Delo to leave for a new right back? We could do. I think if we do it as well, I think most people at the minute seem to favour Wan-Bissaka. It shifted a few months ago. It was Delo. Now it seems to Wan-Bissaka. We'll have to wait and see what happens on that front. We're going to leave it there. Thanks to everyone who got involved in the comments and the chat. Been a really good discussion. We'll be back later on. Obviously, we've got a Sevilla game to look forward to, so we'll have a preview for that. We've also got a couple of videos going in where we're looking at certain players at Manchester United and what they're bringing into the table. We're also going to be looking at as well, or we've already looked at, which players are going to be staying and going. We did a tier list sort of thing about that with Stephen Housen, so go and check that out on the channel if you've not done already. And if you haven't done, make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. Let's get to 700,000 subscribers. With your support, we can do it. I've been Jay Motty. This has been The Paper Talk. Thanks for watching.